All right, we are looking at verse 36 from Proverbs chapter 20. We've gone through the whole thing so far. We've gone through almost all this whole section. And we're down to the last verse, which says, but he, if I can read, but he who fails to find me injures himself. All who hate me love death. So this is wisdom talking, right? Wisdom is saying, for whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who fails to find me injures himself. All who hate me love death. So this is the idea of rejecting wisdom. If we were to reject wisdom's cry has gone out to all the world. She's not hiding. Everyone has heard wisdom. Actually, everyone knows wisdom. All of her commands are written on the hearts of everyone. Like we talked about at the beginning of this, the idea is that people have heard, people know, people understand. They have heard the decree of God, but yet they reject the decree of God. And so wisdom has cried out, and people have rejected it. They did not submit themselves to it. They heard the audibly, they've heard it, and it's written on their hearts, but then they know it's wrong to go against it, but they still do it anyway. And so you have here this idea that he who fails to find me injures himself. Injuring yourself. And really, this is one of the highest crimes that you can commit, is injuring yourself. Right? It's deserving of punishment, too. He who fails to find me injures him. All who hate me love death. It's the idea here that you deserve punishment for this crime that you're committing against yourself. This is violence against your own soul. You're hurting yourself if you do not have wisdom. If you're not seeking wisdom, if that's not a pursuit that you're after, then you're doing violence against yourself. You're hating yourself. You're hurting yourself. This is what it really means to not, it's not indulging yourself. It's not doing whatever you want, like the world says. It's like, oh, I feel so bad because, the worst thing that you do, it doesn't, whatever people do to you, whatever the worst things that you do, that people do to you, it's not as bad as you not seeking the fear of the Lord and his wisdom. Everything else they do is not as bad. Because the violence, it's violence against your soul that you're committing. You are loving your own destruction. That's what's all you hate me, love death. You're loving the death of your own soul. Okay, so no matter what trauma you've gone through in the past, no matter how much people have done to you, it's not compared to you not seeking the wisdom of God. Like, that should be the most traumatic thing of all, right? People complain about PTSD and CPTSD and all these other things, which there's some validity behind some of that stuff, and there's some things that, I understand you can't control, but really ultimately you have to think about the fact that, the worst trauma you've had is by your own hand. If you're not living according to wisdom, if you're not seeking wisdom, then you are doing the most destruction to yourself. And ultimately, you will go to hell because of your destruction of your own soul. That is what you've chosen. That is the worst thing you could have done. And it's the violence against your own soul. So that is really sad. Because that's what it means to reject wisdom. Is to really to hate your own soul. And to desire it to experience death and suffering for all eternity. That is really, really sad. Let's not do that, right? Why would you want to do that? Let's not do that. I had a quote in here from George Lawson, and he said, "Those who despise Christ's gospel or reject his salvation are sinful rebels against him who is the supreme wisdom and the fountain of happiness to men. They are haters of him who is love itself. Such ungrateful rebels are as great enemies to themselves as to Christ. They murder their immortal souls." What do you think about that? They love those sins which are death and damnation in disguise. Sinners against Christ shall receive a reward of vengeance, suited to the blackness of their guilt, and shall, through eternity, have no room to complain of their judge. death and life were set before them, and they chose death, and shall forever eat of the fruit of their own choice. Consider these things, O unbelievers. If you will not now consider them, in the latter days you shall fully consider them. Some very grave, some very sobering words there from George Lawson. But that's what it means. If you reject wisdom, you are murdering your own immortal soul. You'll be murdering your immortal soul for all eternity. Like, you can't just point to others. You have to take the blame and the shame upon yourself and say, yep, I'm here for all eternity because of me. Wow. That's scary. So don't do that. Seek wisdom now. That's the idea. Seek, listen, hear, keep all those commands that Solomon's given. That's why he's so repetitive on this, because he doesn't want his son to murder his eternal soul, immortal soul. So don't do that. Seek the wisdom of God today. Hopefully that's what you're doing. Hopefully that's why you're here. And you're seeking for God's wisdom, seeking to grow, just like I am, seeking God's wisdom, seeking to grow, seeking to learn, trying to avoid all the pitfalls, all the false teaching that's out there, and seeking the truth. So next time, come back and we'll do a little more application to our